We stick with the subject monetization strategies. We come to the art of war with ad blockers. And now the question is, what can publishers do to tackle the ad blocking problem, not only now, but tomorrow? This is Thomas Joosten. He's the ex-CEO of Xanax Group, and he recently started Adsurity.com to address exactly these problems, and we now will know your strategies in a minute. Thank you very much.
Does the mic work? Yeah?
Yes.
And this is the slide thing. Okay, great. I'm actually from the Netherlands, and we have an expression which is actually the short answer of strategies, and you can be out here in 5 minutes. And I'll show you how that works. You know, this is the strategy. So you quickly imagine you guys are the danger coming in front of me, and what do? It's called the ostrich strategy, because they put their head in the sand and they wait the danger to pass by, and then they come up, and then they're saved. So that's something you could try, but I thought that it's better actually to work on it in a professional way, and that's why I'm going to talk about what you can do against ad blockers. And when I was the CEO at Xanax, that's in 2014 already, ad blocking became an issue, and it has grown over time so much. So I said I will help some of the publishers who are dealing with it, and then I set up Adsurity. And so last year I got some experience. And actually what I found out is that, especially here in Germany, most publishers are really advanced. They know, and they have already got stuff in place. But in most other countries, most publishers are still figuring out, okay, what should I do? Where can I find information? And so I'm addressing this presentation actually for those guys, and if there are German publishers here, maybe at the end we can sort of share some information. So this is the war plan. From Sun Tzu, you first analyze the situation, and then you got two options. Either you attack, which is on the convince side, and you convince users to sort of get the ad blocker, deactivate the ad blocker, or pay a subscription, or otherwise you can also circumvent, and that is still show ads. And I'm going to go, this is the structure of the presentation, I'm going to go through these 3 blocks in a really fast-paced and downloading even more information than you already have. So, really great slide. Adfair is a vendor in this market. They have huge tons of information, and I really like this slide showing where there's more than 25% and lower rates of people using ad blockers both on mobile and on the web. And you can see here Germany and Poland. Poland is beating everyone with more than 40% on average. But also India. These are markets which are really advanced. In the other markets, actually, for example, in the Netherlands, which is in the 15-24%, I called quite a couple of publishers, and it was the first time that they actually said, yeah, Thomas, we should do something about it. So you can see a bit of the difference there. Now, who is blocking ads? I think everybody knows it, but what you can see here, it's the younger generations which are really active with ad blockers. But in mature markets, it's also the other age groups. And what's interesting to know about this is that what I experienced personally when we were doing tests is that actually the kids install the ad blockers on their parents' desktops, and the parents have no clue that there's an ad blocker active, but they think, oh wow, the web has become a lot faster. So, you know, that's one side of it. And what I found really interesting, just the presentation, 2 presentations before this generation actually of the 18 to 24 is a very interesting target group, because they don't mind. We just saw they don't mind advertising at all, actually. They just want convenience, and you can do a lot with advertising, and they're willing to give their data. Whereas the older groups are far more, worried about giving their data, and they are more like principle against ads if it's not obvious. So why do people use ad blockers? Well, there's a lot of statistics, and what you ask is the answers you get. And this is what I get on conferences, sort of the common idea. People are fed up with ads. We as the market overflown the market with too many ads and stuff like that. 68% said fed up with the volume, or I dislike ads that follow me. I actually think that, especially when markets mature, this has a truth, but it's not as bad as it's presented here. Actually, a research done by Pagefair is far more what I think is the real reason. So the exposure to viruses and malware is really a big, big topic, because so many people, especially those young guys, go to free download websites and stuff, and what you get there in malware is really horrific. And then ad blockers really help you to not get pop-ups and pop-unders anymore. So that is really the real threat, and which is also not fair for the rest of the industry, which are actually doing quite a good job. And obviously what also shows is interrupting and dysfunctional and slowing websites are really just very basic functional things that people say, I just want things to work for me, and that's why I'm using an ad blocker, and it's not so ethical or more principle driven. So is there hope? Is the ostrich strategy, as we have in the Dutch, is it worth it? Is it worth it? If you look at Google Trends, you see a stabilizing, actually downward going trend in people looking up ad blockers. And when I spoke to quite a couple of publishers, they say actually it's stabilizing. And the effects actually from IAB of joint efforts of showing up walls made it for a lot of consumers actually a bit of a hassle to have an ad blocker active, because then you get all these questions of whether you turn it off, and then obviously that helped. But the answer is no, there's no hope, because mobile is really taking off big time. And as we've seen in the first slide from Jeff, I think he said mobile is quickly taking more and more over, especially for publishers. Users are using mobile, and also on mobile, the ad blockers are taking over. And Asia is actually a very good market to look at. In 16% of the users actually have ad blockers installed on mobile. There's no reason for Europeans and Americans not to use that example. And if you want to know more about how to tackle that, this looks like a complicated slide. I added it so you can look it up later, but mobile landscape on the web, it's easy because people just download a plugin on the web browser, but on the mobile, there's a big incentive from the phone companies to install ad blockers. Or when you want more security on your free Wi-Fi's, your security VPN software has its standard installed. Browsers who want you to make your mobile easier to use have a big incentive to stop ads, because it just makes it much better, the browser much better, and therefore they compete against other browsers. So a lot in mobile still to come. And what is the financial impact? I'm not from the publishing industry actually myself, because I was more on the ad network side. And I found out in the last year that actually a lot of publishers don't have a clue what they're losing on money. They don't know how much a new visitor is worth for a recurring visitor to switch off their ad blocker. And what I also found is actually that the problem is not that big, because we have a lot of unsold inventory, and you make most of your money in, I suppose the Pareto rule goes as well, in 20% is most of your CPM made, and the rest is very low CPMs, so you're not losing that much. If you get over a certain threshold, then actually it starts becoming painful, like here in Germany, and then obviously you have to do something about it. But in that other threshold, actually, there's not so much pain financially speaking. On the other side, there's a big, huge opportunity, because you have a legitimate reason to ask your users who have an ad blocker installed, hey, guys, would you want to have a subscription, and we'll give you an ad light. You can start experimenting with those younger users to get, for example, an opt-in on data, and still presenting them with ads they really want. And the thing is, the reverse works here as well. If you start making money, even in the 1-2% range of subscriptions, that is real big money bottom line, much more than you would think you would be losing. So that is roughly the analysis of the situation. And now, what about convincing? I've got a couple of slides of things I learned myself. Maybe I'll go through them also real quick, because you guys must have learned this yourself as well, but it's good to see. You can ask, plea for understanding, say, please, we have to make our money also. Could you please switch off your ad blocker? You can do it the hard way, or and then if you do it the hard way, you can show alternatives on other ways of still making money. So an example of pleading, instead of the normal ad space, you can put banners and then still show banners and ask them to switch it off. I found it quite funny. The Guardian is a prime example of a company who has made subscriptions work, and they ask also in a nice way. They try a lot of things, but this is more like the cookie law, where you have a line somewhere in your website and you say, hey, you guys are using ad blocker, would you switch it off, or would you step into a subscription model? I love this one. It's the Telegraaf. We worked with them, and I thought this was a wall because it's shown like this in your face, saying, "Hey, you're using an ad blocker. Could you switch it off?" And then here in the line, I mean, we worked with them quite a while, and then you could click on this, and it just says, "If you still want to see it for free, just click on this." But most consumers didn't realize. They thought they had to pay something and stuff. And what I liked about this example is. What I experience with publishers, there's a big fright to try things out. They think, oh, if we put a wall, we have to prepare the payment system in place, and it's complex, and we have to go to the tech guys. No, you can learn so much by just trying things out and saying, hey, if you still want to visit us for free, click on this and see what happens. Well, we all know the build, also a great example, but the build is a little bit our way or the highway, which had a lot of bad impact. And also, you have to realize that you're also losing clients. Now, obviously, you're losing non-paying clients, but what we've seen with a lot of publishers, from visitors who might not pay or not look at ads, they promote you as well. And this can therefore be more painful, that the derivative traffic you lose from that is bigger than the initial traffic. What else is there? Very important to know is that Google is much more into, and also Facebook, into functionality. So if the website is clumsy, it doesn't work really well, Google punishes you for that, and then you get sort of worse off in the search engines. So what you can do is you can put a timer on it and show a wall much later if you want, and you can also think about where you put it in the content, not always on the first page, on the home page, but you can put it deeper down in the content where your search authority is much higher. What we also learned is that this text, whatever you put here, doesn't make any difference. I mean, it's really in the percentiles. Whatever you put there, you can put just one sentence and say blah, blah, blah. People still understand that they have to do something, and it doesn't affect the conversions. However, what does make a big difference, if you show and you do your best to show the consumer where the ad blocker is, and to make it switch it off, because this is a very big conversion killer. And the silver bullet of like a button to press on and then killing all the ad blockers is still not found, and probably will not be found. Last little thing I learned personally, and I think it's such a no-brainer, and everybody will think, Thomas, we would have done it right. Mobile. We thought only on the web, and nobody's using mobile. So we worked with this company, and we had this amount of text. We reduced it and made it really responsive, and their conversion rate to switching it off more than doubled, just because so many people use mobile nowadays. That was we tested that in the United States. Then alternatives. So the first thing people think is, okay, let's do a subscription model. And so if you switch it off, your ad blocker, if you don't switch it off, then you have to pay. which is a very natural thing to think. But there are loads and loads of different alternatives which I think you should try. I mean, you can ask for data, you can ask for emails, you can ask participation, user-generated content. We talked so much about it. If your users are active and starting to participate in stories and content you're writing, that's worth a lot of money. So if they then exchange that participation for seeing your website adblock free with the ad blocker, who cares? I mean, then you've got a big win-win. These are a lot of things you learn by just doing it and by trying things out. And then you get into actually the bottom line of this whole attack. You have to start working your way into trying things out and coming with alternative models, either subscription and paying, or other things like we saw, getting an opt-in to give advertisements, which actually a lot of people actually want to get these advertisements, and then your advertisers want it, and they will pay a much higher model, and you'll be increasing your revenue. But that's hard work, and I can see that's really difficult with the with publishers, because you have to get a team together, you have to change, you have to get different departments thinking about it, and then suddenly there is this fright of starting something and making big, huge plans, because the committees have to approve of things, and then you get into the muddle of not getting things done, rather than trying and learning and getting better at it. So, if you don't want to go that way, then you can still go through the back door and give people ads, even if they're using an ad blocker. And I'll go quickly into that, because that is a very important part, and we can actually see that a lot of publishers are starting here, and they give up, and then they think, okay, let me just do in the circumvention. And there are sort of three different things. You can do what we call ad reinsertion, ad replacement, so you still shove an ad there where the ad blocker had killed it. You can, it's related, show acceptable ads, and then finally you can indirectly pay the ad blockers, or Adblock Plus actually is the biggest who provides it, and still get paid for ads. So a little bit about this ad reinsertion. If you go to vendors, you have to look at two things. There are vendors who created this software which comes on the server part as a publisher, and it will serve the banners from your domain, and then ad blockers can't do anything about it. But you have to install it, you have to go through the tech stack, and then you also have to have a mechanism to get to your ad servers, select which ads you want to still show, because I'll get back to that later, and then show them, which is quite a complex mechanism, and those vendors do that for you. But it takes a lot of time and investment, and then you really have to know what the return on investment is. What you also have is from the cloud vendors. They actually have a little trick that the ad blockers can't see, the sort of the calling URL for going to the ad server, and this is generated in the cloud, and it's more of a cat and mouse game. But the vendors, they have to play that game, and you as a publisher, you don't have to do it. It's a very easy install, and it's just less secure than from your own server. So if you do that, then obviously, if you don't want to get too much irritation in sort of the people who are using the ad blockers out of principle and you just have to stay out of the zone of using unacceptable ads. Now, what are acceptable ads? The IAB has a sort of a standard, which is called LEAN, light encrypted, so it's, I actually don't know exactly what it means, but so that it's no danger for the users, ad choice supported, that users can give feedback if they don't like it, and non-invasive. But what I really liked is this one. This chart is from Adblock Plus themselves. Tim Schumacher showed that, and they have an inquiry about what are acceptable ads. And if you look in the red, you can't read it, but these are pop-ups, pop-unders, and banners which cover your whole screen. People really don't like it. And you and I, we definitely know what type of ads we don't like, so you shouldn't show them. And then the yellow is a little bit in the middle ground, and green is quite accepted. So obviously, when you work with vendors, you have to be sure that they will stay on sort of this side of the ads they still show and not get into the red. And what I learned actually from working with some of the vendors is that as a publisher, you don't have a good view of what ads are being served on your own network. It's very difficult, and these vendors give you the insights, and you learn that actually your own visitors are served quite a lot of ads you actually didn't want them to have seen at all because of all the exchanges. Ooh, wow, my time is up. So what's the war plan? Very quick. I would advise really take time of analysis and go into the subject matter. It's an easy step to learn more from what's happening through analysis tools. Then do two things at the same time. Definitely use circumvention and defend yourself and still make some money, but more importantly, go into the convincing mode and using ad blockers as a super opportunity to both become with new ad formats and get more higher CPMs, and at the same time gaining subscriptions, because there is really, it's the only way forward. Ad blockers are there to stay. Then the last slide, you can download it, but I made an overview for if you get into it. There are a lot of new vendors, and every month they're popping up new ones. So this gives you an overview of the most important ones. If you download the presentation, you can see it, but you can also go to this website where I made a sort of a handy overview of all the players in the market. And every time I get information from people, I add stuff to it. So if you go to adblock.safe.com, you can immediately have an overview of, I think, 80%. And after this conference, I'll add quite a couple I met. So you have an overview of all the vendors you want to talk to. And that was it, and I hope that was helpful. And maybe we have time for questions.
Thank you very much. We have a 5-minute pause after this talk to the next talk. But are there any questions from your part? To whom was that helpful? Can you raise your hand, what he was talking about concerning ad blockers? Okay. Okay, the others, you already know so much about it?
Yeah.
Quite something. Okay. I have one question from my part. Really going into discussion or into communication with people who have been ad blocking, yeah? How successful is that really on a long term? Do they really respond? Do they really give you answers? What kind of ads they would like to see, etc.? If you really try to communicate with them one-to-one?
Well, it depends very much on which type of publisher you are. Like if you already have a relationship with publishers or with the visitors, but if you'll be amazed how much people like to tell their opinion, but you have to put the instruments there to get that feedback and to start also engaging. So I think it's more of the moderation of that discussion rather than that it is something that people would not react. It's a very animated subject for a lot of people.
So thank you very much so far.
Okay.
Good luck.
Welcome. Okay, thank you.